Hello, MAB Elementary. This is Mr. T. It's a little bit sad today because this is going to be our last astronomy lesson. I've really enjoyed going back over the astronomy curriculum. I've told you guys that it's really probably my favorite in the cultural collection that we do at MAB Elementary over our 3-year cycle. And I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm sorry that we weren't able to experience it together in our classroom. We'll do that again going down the road. But having said that, this is such an exciting time to be interested in astronomy. There are so many exciting things going on out there in terms of technology and developments in space exploration. And I want to tell you about a few of them because there's one coming up tomorrow that you might have missed its significance, but it's going to be really important. Tomorrow at 4:30 p.m., I encourage you and your moms and dads to get on the television, find the channel that has it, and watch the launch of the NASA SpaceX manned spacecraft headed for the International Space Station. This is really, really a breakthrough moment. There are 2 astronauts who will be going up to the space station. And again, as I said, it's on at 4:30 tomorrow on the television. That's going to be the first manned launch of a space vehicle from the United States in 9 years. We ended our program with the space shuttle in 2011 and have been using Russian spacecraft, the old Soyuz spacecraft, to ferry astronauts up to the International Space Station. For one thing, it's been really expensive. It costs $86 million for every astronaut that the Russians have sent up for us. And now we'll be able to do it very cheaply, much more efficiently. And we're going to be able to do it because SpaceX is this private company. It's not a government agency. It's a private company where entrepreneurs have invested their own money to develop these new technologies. And NASA, which is the government space agency and had developed the previous space programs for the United States, said, look, those guys can do it better, faster, and more efficient than we can, so let's help them do it. And so that combination has resulted in this space launch, manned space launch, which is happening tomorrow at 4:30. Really exciting. Now, just as a bit of background, SpaceX, this private company, has just started up a few years ago, and they've been able to come through with some amazing breakthroughs in spacecraft technology. Their Dragon spacecraft has been like a cargo tanker taking supplies up to the space station now for more than a year, and it's been very successful. And so now what's been done is SpaceX is adapting their cargo capsule to take up 2 astronauts who volunteered to go. So it's really exciting. I'm going to be watching it, and I hope you will be too. Another development that's out there that's been underway now for a while is the James Webb Space Telescope. Let me tell you about that. And I'll put some pictures up on our Facebook page so that you guys can see some of the things I'm talking about here. But make sure you watch that SpaceX launch live. The James Webb Space Telescope, everything has to have an acronym. That's a number of, that's some letters that describe it. So it's the JWST, James Webb Space Telescope. It's scheduled to launch next March, the 2021 March. It's named after one of the space agency's most famous directors, James Webb. He was back in 1961 and was responsible for managing NASA when we put a man on the moon with the Apollo space program. The James Webb Space Telescope is going to replace Hubble, and it's going to be so much more powerful in its ability to see deeply into space. It's going to work. It's a mirror telescope, and its mirror is going to be able to see, special high-tech mirror, is going to be able to see infrared light spectrums from deep space that originated just after the Big Bang. It's hard to imagine, but that means that light that came from the formation of the first galaxies 13 billion years ago is going to be able to be seen by the James Webb Space Telescope and be able to be analyzed. So our cosmologist and our astronomers are going to be able to learn a lot more about the origins of our universe. And here's why. James Webb is going to be so high up out of the out of the Earth's atmosphere that it's going to have this clear vision of light coming in to its mirrors. No atmosphere. It's going to be 930,000 miles above the Earth in its orbit. For comparison purposes, the moon is about 250,000 miles above the Earth in its orbit. So that means the James Webb Space Telescope is going to be 4 times further out into space from the Earth than our moon is. For comparison purposes, Hubble, and you've seen, Mr. T showed you the fantastic photographs that Hubble has been able to take over its decades of operation. Hubble is at 340 miles above the Earth's crust. So this is going to be a breakthrough. The kind of discoveries that that astronomers are going to be able to make with James Webb is truly amazing. Now, being out there at 930,000 miles from the Earth, unprotected by the Earth's atmosphere and unobstructed by it, means that the James Webb is going to be subject to intense radiation from the sun's rays. And it's being protected by a shield, a high technology shield made out of 5 layers of polymer. Polymer is kind of like a plastic material. But these 5 layers, each one of these layers is the thickness of a human hair. So take your human hair, that's how thin the layers of this sun shield are. Pile up 5 of them, and that's going to protect this satellite, this telescope, from the sun's rays. So the James Webb, that is something excited and to be excited about. Another thing I've recommended to you before, and once we're able to move around the city a lot, I highly recommend you go there. It's the Goddard NASA Space Flight Center. It's located in Beltsville, Maryland, which is around the Beltway, not too far away. And it's the largest collection of space scientists and engineers working in any place in the world. And they've done all kinds of breakthrough work, and they continue to do so. There's a great information center there, like a museum on space exploration that you'd love to see. And NASA Goddard has been responsible for managing the satellites that observe the Earth. So these are satellites that have been put in orbit around the Earth to study the surface of the Earth and the crust of our Earth. And it was given charge and responsibility, and it's been highly successful in managing the Hubble Space Telescope. So NASA is a great place, and a place for you to continue your research and your interest in astronomy that I hope you've developed here over the course of our discussions. There's another institute out there that's world famous. It's called the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL. And it's located in Pasadena, California. And it was founded way back in 1936 by astronomers who were studying space at Caltech, California Institute of Technology, really famous science university, which maybe some of you guys will get to go to and become future astronauts and astro engineers. JPL builds and maintains planetary robots. So it designed, built, and managed, and still manages, the 2 Mars rovers that have been so successful in mapping and photographing and sampling the surface of Mars. And they also are managing Juno. Juno is the orbiting satellite that was put around Jupiter in 2006. It was launched in 2011. It got to Jupiter in 2016, and since then has been orbiting Jupiter. It's a solar-powered craft. That is, its little electrical motors and cameras and sensing machines are run by solar power. Most of the satellites that we have sent out into deep space have been powered by small nuclear electric generation systems. So this one was a breakthrough, and it's studying how Jupiter was formed, whether it has a rocky core, question we don't know. Is there water in its atmosphere deep down inside its gaseous? You remember Jupiter is a gaseous giant. What about the winds of Jupiter? The winds in Jupiter swirling, you know, the red cloud is is a super huge cyclone that's been observed on Jupiter for many, many years. Some of those winds are as high as 350 miles per hour. Remember, mom and dad are driving on the Greenway, they're driving at 65 miles an hour, and the winds on Jupiter are up to 350 miles an hour. So those are the kind of things that the Juno is studying, and the JPL scientists are managing it while it does that. Interestingly, when its life is over, they're going to crash Juno into the surface of the planet Jupiter, into the gaseous surface of it. And while it's crashing in, it's going to be sending back scientific data that's going to allow the scientists at JPL to understand a whole lot more about Jupiter. Finally, I couldn't fail to mention two of the most amazing human developments in space engineering and space exploration over the past decades. And that's the Voyager 1 and the Voyager 2. Oh my. Both of them were launched within a few months of each other in 1977. Okay, that's 43 years ago. They've been flying into space for 43 years. Voyager 1, and they're both pretty close to each other. Well, close in terms of their statistics. So I'll just tell you about Voyager 1. It's 13 billion 800 million miles from the Earth. 13 billion 800 million miles from Earth. Remember, the sun is just 93 million miles from the Earth. So what Voyager did is we launched the Voyagers headed out from the Earth and out from the sun into our solar system. They have given us wonderful pictures of all the planets. You know, that big poster Mr. T has on the wall that I put up on the wall during astronomy. Those are the pictures. The only pictures we have of some of the outer planets were taken by the Voyagers. They have both entered what's called interstellar space. So that's beyond Neptune, beyond the Kuiper Belt, where Pluto is a dwarf planet, beyond all of that stuff that was left over from when our solar system was formed, into interstellar space. Another way to look at it is that they're now outside the reach of the sun's rays, the sun's radiation. So they're in deep, dark, super cold interstellar space between the solar systems and headed out into the galaxy. They're moving at 38,000 miles per hour. 38,000 miles per hour, propelled by the forces of gravity out in interstellar space. And they're still sending back scientific information to people. I think it's JPL who are monitoring this, and it takes 20 minutes for data to be sent by the radios on the Voyagers back to the receivers on Earth. Well, like I said, it's a super exciting time to be interested in astronomy. And tomorrow at 4:30, it becomes even more exciting again, because the first Americans launched from Florida will be going to the International Space Station. And that's a first step in efforts that are underway, serious engineering and design and building efforts that are underway to send American astronauts and engineers back to a permanent station living and working on the moon. And beyond that, in not too many distant years into the future, we may be able to put our astronauts on the surface of Mars. And I sure hope that some of you guys will be the scientists who get involved in designing and maybe even going out into space. So this is Mr. T. Astronomy is fun. Stay with it. Take care.